10 Eastern.
It wasn't, we weren't rolling, you know.
We're not rolling now. I'm not online. We're not doing a live stream.
Right?
No, because YouTube won't let me have access to my channel.
So all those, wow.
Well, what I'll do...
I thought it was just that they took that one down. They basically...
No, they didn't take one down, actually. I was looking at my channel earlier today. We were both looking at it here a little while ago, and that channel, that video is up.
The de-Google?
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they pinched you.
Yeah. So...
They deactivated your live stream ability.
Well, they've deactivated my access to my channel because they're wanting me to get some verification code, and it's impossible for me to get a code because they're not giving me an email address to get it at.
How did you do that before? Didn't they do that to you before?
They did it on Brave when I had the same profile on Brave. It's my YouTube channel again, and but I was able to get access it on Chrome, so I was logging into Chrome.
And what's your solution this time?
I'm going to file a bar grievance against their chief counsel. Before I file a bar grievance, I'm going to file a war crimes complaint. I'm going to send it to the Attorney General and the Pentagon, you know, because they're taking reprisals against me for my political beliefs. So I'm going to list everything they've been doing.
Sweet. The morning just hit me. Heaven's very happy with me.
Good.
He likes your plan.
And so... And I'm going to file a bar grievance against their. As a matter of fact, before we get into the video, let's do this. I'll show you Google. Hey, you stupid piece of junk. So this is what you go to when you go to Google. Right? Well, let's see, about. You go all the way to the bottom. Investor relations, there it is. Any FedEx, any website, I don't care what it is. You go to the bottom and you look for investor relations.
Especially if it's a public company.
Well, yes, of course, yeah, a public traded company. So it's Alphabet Inc., investor relations. So I'm looking. There's if worse comes to worse, I'll go to an annual report, because it'll be in the annual report for sure. But I'm looking for something. Board. Right there.
Sweet.
Let's go to the board. Audit and compliance. Compensation. Corporate governance. That would be more likely where the chief counsel's at. Executive committee. And this is the California State Bar too, because they're based in the Bay Area of California. So what I'd be likely to do is to go to see, they don't list okay, we'll probably have to go to a annual report. here's the certificate of incorporation. Let's see what it says. It's a Delaware corporation. Different classes of stock. Quite a bit there. I don't feel like reading it all.
To confirm your Bouvier's no entry at all for autograph. Signature as in both ecclesiastical law and practice of contract.
Right. Which would make sense, actually.
How do you separate an autograph from a signature?
There is no such thing as an autograph.
There's no such thing.
In law, in Bouvier's law. Now, I haven't checked whether they, like I usually go to Cornell law, that's the current slave situation. Interesting.
Well, let's see what this annual meeting of stockholders, maybe that's gonna have the annual report. Proxy materials. Damn. They're making it hard to find here. Okay, well, let's do something else here. Let's go alphabet.
Because when I went on, it gave me the opportunity to do your 11 o'clock Sunday morning.
Well, like I told you, I can't get into the account. I think I showed it already earlier today. Here's a 2019 annual report. Here, 2/20, 2020. So, guaranteed in here, it's gonna have board of directors.
You do a word search for attorney, for counsel, for chief.
Oh, there we go, yeah. Wow, chief is not there. And there's that. Wow. Well, that's only 10 pages. That's a Form 10K. That's not really the annual report. Okay, how about this? Chief counsel. 2020. Looks like they changed. Stepping down amid investigation. 2018 to present. To present. Okay, good. That's what I want. Okay, so now I got his name.
All right, Kent. Incoming missing.
Yep.
What's fun is they have no early warning system.
Yep. There we go.
And then we can find out where his bar license is held.
Well, he's gonna be in California, right?
Probably.
So let's go to the California State Bar.
Doesn't know he's being tracked right now.
So for New York, it'd be New York State Bar.
I think so.
Right, see, here's their homepage.
I found it pretty quick, list of attorneys
This is good.
Attorneys,
in New Jersey.
Search. Frustrates me.
certificate of standing.
There you go.
Oh, this is for attorneys. Fingerprinting rule requirement. Man, they make them fingerprint. Well, that's good. They're criminals. They ought to be doing that. For judges. Okay, let's,
I put in attorney search. I'm not sure if that'll help people.
well, let's try it. Eh?
Enter attorney name or bar number. Calbar.com.
Oh, licensee search.
Right.
So they're giving you proper terminology there.
Adam Walker, Andrew Walker,
Kent Walker.
Andrew Walker. Here's Keith, page number 7.
California Compendium of Professional Responsibility Index. Okay, now there's gotta be a, oh, look at that, complaints and forms. So here you can download, I've already got the form though. Oh, here, look up a lawyer. Kent Walker. A lot of times it's in the most,
Kent Michael or Kent, okay.
Kent Walker.
Yep, San Diego. Kent Michael Walker, 173700, active.
Kent Walker Jr., Mountain View, Kent Michael Walker, Kent John Walker. So there's 4 of them. So which one? A Mountain View. Mountain View's up in the Bay Area, if I remember right.
That's correct.
And so that's where he's gonna be. That's Kent Walker, John Kent Walker Jr.
What, 1987?
And I got his bar number and everything, right? Right there.
Right.
So anyways, that's where I get my information, right there
Sounds
online.
perfect.
Pretty simple, just have to
No.
kinda look around.
That's good. I
Um,
wrote it all down.
and,
Would you
no
send
matter
it to
what
all
state
of them?
you're in, huh?
Would you send it to all of them so you get the right person?
Actually, you know,
or
that's
would you
another thing, let's
just
go back
choose?
here. Let's go back here and see who else is a lawyer on the board.
Wow.
Larry Page, let's go and see if Larry Page is on here as a lawyer.
Right, right. Yeah, I looked up all of my council people, and none of them are attorneys.
I mean, let's invite them all to the party.
Yeah.
Okay, he's not a lawyer. Let's see who else. Sergey Brin, S-E-R-G-E-Y. No results, okay. Sundar Pichai, P-I-C-H-A-I. No results. John L. Hennessy.
Well, I just put in the last name, because it might not be the same. Like, I would just put in Hennessy and see what happens. Oh, John, that's,
N-N-E-S-S-Y.
it's not exactly.
There we go.
Okay.
Oh, they're all dead.
Mhm.
So it can't be one of those.
Mhm.
Francis Arnold. You can actually click this, include similar sounding names. He's dead too, so it's not him. John Doerr, D-O-E-R-R. Because what I do is I file bar grievances. I'm gonna. If any of them are bar members, they're getting one too. Roger Ferguson. Ann Mather. Menlo Park, that's Northern California. She's got a bar number too. Admission December 2009. Man, that could be like her daughter or something like that.
Why? There's a lot of young.
Ann Mather. (1960). She's my age. She wouldn't have been joining the bar in 2009 unless it was her daughter, I think. I mean, why would anybody join the bar in their 60s?
Hard to say.
I could file a bar grievance anyways, just as a matter of principle. Anyways. Alan Mulally, okay, there's a good one. He's CEO of Boeing. No results. M-U-L-A-L-L-Y. Yep. Ram Shriram. could be the one. Oh, Latham and Watkins LLP, so she's in this law firm in Southern California. It may not be the same one. But she's on the board of directors, so it's not like, you know, the board only sits once in a while. Robin Washington, eh? A lot of times they have but they're not. In this case, they don't have the board members, they're like history, you know, their qualifications to be on the board. Anyways, so, you know, they're gonna, looks like they're hiding a lot of stuff. Okay, so they're not telling me, I mean, there's nothing else there that, because I would be interested in locations. Where's the locations? Right, Mountain View, California. Yeah. Well, they've also got locations all over the country here too. Austin, Texas. Not surprised about Austin. Austin's a hub of liberal garbage, you know what I mean?
Isn't that the capital?
Austin is the capital of Texas, yeah. So all these dots are locations, I guess. Anyways, you know, basically that's what I would do. Find out as many of them, especially on the board of directors. It'd be nice to know, there's the board of directors, there's also a, how about executive officers? Executive officers are different than board of directors. General manager and VP of payments, here we go. Machine learning, business operations, SVP, global affairs, sustainability. So then these ones, I'd go and probably look, chief diversity, I'd go and find out, and that's a good place, good thing to do too, is find out who there is on the, okay, Sundar, Cesar Sengupta. C-E,
I just cut and paste the name.
C-A-E, yeah, that's a good idea.
That's what I do.
Actually, it doesn't allow me to do that, so.
Is it
C-A-E. And G-U-P-T-A, I think, S-E-N-G-U-P-T-A? Yeah. Search. It's gonna be some of those that are bar members, no results. Catherine Courage, that should be an easy one. Search.
Have you found any yet, one or two?
Nope, not yet. I've only searched two. Eve Anderson with two S's.
So these are executive officers? She sounds like that.
Okay. Get lost. Matt Britton. Okay.
So while he's doing that,
Kent
I want to
Walker.
ask you about the PMA. How long have you had it? Is it working?
I got it in January. Did the paperwork in
One.
January, yeah.
Here we go.
It's on my door.
Kent Walker.
Health department.
Mountain View. I think that Kent Walker
I sent
was
you
on
things.
the board of directors too.
I'm sorry, while he's talking, I don't want to have to.
He's their chief counsel.
Who, Kent Walker?
Yeah.
Right, that's what we looked up before. But
Senior
he's on-
Vice President of Global Affairs. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so he is definitely the current one. Kate Brandt.
I have a video. Building department keeps going to it.
No results.
Yeah, but what?
Ruth Porat.
Good tenant.
Um,
Packleball. Usually I go out when.
No results.
Notorious.
And the old Sabarol Wall. Damn.
We're the free, they're the slaves. That's the thing you have to get in your head. And they don't know it. They think they're the boss. They think they're the slave masters. And they are. If you were a slave, they were your slave masters.
They weren't prepared for someone who had some education from school. They would just come out and ask questions.
How do you
But I
just,
was like,
Frederick
"Yes."
P-F-E-R-D-T.
it's like my pension's at risk, what's my wife gonna say? My,
The guy, he walked away. What are you doing? We're gonna talk.
right, you wanna keep the eye.
Melanie Parker.
I'm having too much fun. Bloody in their nose.
All the client was waiting for me in the chair. You know, like, they come and they're working. They think they're intimidating. It's okay.
Philip
I understand.
Schindler. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm coming here on Saturday and Sunday. Now I'm gonna be gone. We're gonna come back again. So.
Oh, when
Two
you're
L's on
open,
Philip.
people.
One
I was
out.
open Friday and then I left in the sun. So
Lorraine Toohill.
Sweet. Would that work for an acupuncturist?
I mean, Bobby says it works for anything, and when I researched it, and then I'm like, oh, there's another company that does things like that.
Thomas Kurian.
And she said that so many restaurants and businesses, aside from medicine, medical, and holistic, have been joining the PNA since the pandemic. She said it's like an influx of businesses all around the world,
Hiroshi
not just
Wackheimer.
medical or holistic, like doctors, which I thought was just for them, but it's for everybody. But, I'm afraid to do the no taxing. I can just start taxing. After you told me about the padlocking and all that, but I'll get the.
URZHOLZE. Jen Fitzpatrick.
Sure.
Getting,
You can,
See, Jen Fitzpatrick. Newport Beach and Surprise, inactive.
looks he's getting one.
Snap. See, that's the nice thing about all these Surprise Valley Hot Springs. So there's no surprise. Cedarville, California. Okay, let's do this. Is it Sunrise? Says Surprise. So who knows where I'm surprised. Oh, here, what's this? Surprise Valley. Oh, there's nowhere near. It's up in northeastern corner. Can't be the same thing. Newport Beach is down in Southern California, so it can't be that one either. Okay, so much for that one. Rick Osterwold. And the last one is Jade Raymond. You know, I'm curious. Nothing. Okay, so then let's do this.
The Oster was a H at the end, not an N. Thank you for that.
Alphabet. I'll bet you there's no executive officers for Alphabet Inc. Oh, well, let's see what this shows. That's Google. I bet they're all the same. Okay. are all different ones.
Sundar.
Yeah, well, he's a CEO, Sergey Brin, but Ellen West, Hennessy I searched, Ann Mather, I didn't search an O'Toole. Is there a date for this? Anyways, so as you can see, if you do a little bit of research, who knows what you're gonna come up with, you know? I'd be looking for all the bar members, and I'd make up a criminal complaint and name them, and then use that criminal complaint, send a criminal complaint to like the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the U.S. Attorney General and the State Attorney General and you know, that kind of thing, right? They'd all be listed up at the top. And
You said State Attorney General.
and U.S. Attorney General.
Where the state, that's in your state, right?
I'd send it to my state and I'd send it to California in this case. California Attorney General.
Right. State attorney, U.S. Attorney General for California and for your state.
No, it's not a U.S. Attorney General for California. It's called the California Attorney General. And then the U.S. Attorney General is in D.C.
U.S. Attorney General, the Attorney General, but you wouldn't send it to the local state branch of the U.S. Attorney?
Well, it wouldn't do any good to send it to the state branch of the U.S. Attorney in Texas. I might find the local U.S. Attorney in Northern California there.
That's where I'm planning on just, if you send it to D.C., Maine, it's like, to me, I'm just gonna send it to Camden, where that's my district, that's
Yeah,
their district.
You could send it there, that'd be the U.S. Attorney.
Right.
You could send it there. If the offenders are there, in this case, the offenders are all in California, so I'd find out the local
Right.
U.S. Attorney.
Right, and there's the district for Northern California most
Right.
likely.
Yeah, well, there's several districts in California, but so, anyways, yeah, I'd send it to that one.
For that
And-
state,
Huh?
for that state.
Right.
And you said State Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General.
Yeah,
and
I'd
you
send
said
it to
Chief
have-
Counsel?
3 or 4 people, certified mail.
What's the Chief Counsel? Chief Counsel also?
No, I wouldn't send it to them. It's a bar grievance. It's a criminal complaint. I'm tattling on them. See what I'm saying? And so I'm not gonna send it to them. I'm gonna wait till let the U.S. Attorney go down and visit them and start asking them some pointed questions and let them scorn them. You know what I mean? And then I'll take that as evidence and file a bar grievance against them.
Take the criminal complaint
Yeah,
that's been filed with the authority
that's right.
under
Yeah.
the criminal code.
Yeah, and yeah, so I'd come up with some California statutes. I'd go look in the California Criminal Code, or the California Penal Code, I think it's called, and look at what kind of statutes they
Right,
might be
because
violating.
lawyers are violating the law.
That's right, and they're required to know the law.
Owens talk, my understanding is I guess all law is constitutional, right?
Well, technically, it's when they're violating constitutional rights, but I don't care. They're required to know the law, period.
Because that's,
Especially the criminal law. They're required, they're deemed to know the law.
but he talked about that Owens case, when you bring it up, it refers to constitution.
I know what it refers to.
Okay. Because I think they're just gonna ignore it because it's not constitutional. I have to bring up a constitutional situation, in my view.
There's lots of constitutional rights that aren't even crimes. So whatever, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Anyways, it's like throwing mud against the wall. You never know what's going to stick.
Right, well, that's where I've come up with the public servant aspect is an official deprivation, that's a crime. So the question is, what can an attorney do that's a crime? crime.
Yeah, under their codes, that's what I'd be looking for.
Right, so if you find a crime,
And
now
that's why I'd look under their codes, looking for a crime.
right, I agree.
Anyways, I'm not gonna search for all these guys.
So in my case, I filed a criminal complaint against the local city solicitor with the county prosecutor's office. That county prosecutor's office, chief assistant prosecutor, refused to admit my charges. She refused to give it to a grand jury. She sent the head judge a letter saying that this guy, me, filed against one of their attorneys. There's no crime here. I don't see a crime. So the judge sat and didn't do anything because she was just reporting that there's no crime. This man filed a complaint criminally against the attorney. And she just reported it to the judge that she found nothing, no cause of action, which she didn't present it to the grand jury. So I called my local municipal court clerk and said, okay, I want to file a criminal complaint now against the chief assistant prosecutor, because she's not proceeding. She's burying me. I asked 2 or 3 or 4 times for fun, and the woman never answered. Court clerk. The next thing I know, the municipal court clerk, because in New Jersey you file first with the municipal court. That's how they kept Chris Christie out of jail. Because if it ever gets to Superior Court, he would have gone to jail, Chris Christie. They kept it in the municipal court. Municipal jurisdiction as opposed to territorial jurisdiction. That's my understanding of what's been happening. So the judge was basically harassed by the municipal clerk saying, this guy wants to know, and I haven't answered him, and I might get in trouble, so would you please take care of this matter? That's when the judge sent my brother and I. He accused us of being a serial complainant, which we had 14 criminal charges, 14 different people with different charges, state and federal listed, that we filed with evidence. And then a month ago, he sent 6 cops, two cops here 3 times a day trying to locate us to serve us, because he refused to mail it, because it's fraud if he mails it. That's what I think.
Of course it is.
So he invited us to a Zoom conference, and he said in his paperwork, he chose, in his court, he decided to open up a case against us, and then served our all caps name. So last week, when the 30 days was up, sent him an email saying, I appreciate the invitation, but if and when he's ever going to tell me what kind of jurisdiction he's claiming he has in this matter, then perhaps I'll reconsider my willing. He can reschedule till we figure this out, what jurisdiction he's claiming he has, because he ordered every municipal court in the county to not accept any more criminal complaints from me and my brother. These names are off the list. You do not have to accept any criminal complaints.
Yeah, that's big time denial of due process.
Right. So
Matter
I'm
of
now
fact,
at the...
I'd file a bar grievance against him.
Right, so that's where we're at. That was last week, so that's why we're here. But I went up the chain till the judge decided he was going to try to put salve on the wound of this municipal clerk, because I keep asking her, it's your duty to tell me where to file, in my opinion. Do I file it with her? Do I file it with the county court directly? Or do I file it with the state attorney general? Those were kind of my choices. And she just never answered. Because basically, if you've got them dead to rights, they have nowhere to hide. And so each judge now, I'm up to the county level. The county level assignment judge who has refused, he also stated, he reviewed my complaints, which I think he lied. I brought all of our complaints, he says, I agree, there's no evidence of crime here. So now, when I file the bar complaint and the judicial complaint against him, he's failing to give us due process because he allowed this prosecutor to be the judge and jury. There was no grand jury investigation. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so let's get moving on with this. So I do a bunch of research, obviously, and build a case. You gotta build a case. And the better you build it, and the more likely they're gonna get a phone call or a visit, you know what I mean? Or, you know, if you don't, you know, then they might not do anything, or, you know, who knows what.
Can you just be more clear on the steps? Like, you go in and you search who the chief counsel is, who the attorney general is, you get their bar numbers.
Sorry?
Can you just say the steps again? Like, how do you start with?
Well, I find out who their chief counsel is. I want some bar members.
Right.
Because they're the ones that are responsible for what's going on.
Right, and you get their bar numbers.
Right, and I can't get the name. I mean, you saw what Google, it just comes up with a page. They don't tell you who it is that's causing this, but there's somebody that's causing it, okay? And so there's a manager that's causing it, and he's doing what the chief counsel is telling him to do. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it's a conspiracy, and that's what I'm going to throw into that affidavit. And I'm going to say that the chief counsel is required to know the law, and you know, that kind of thing. Yes.
So in her case, like that, she had a code enforcement officer or somebody show up, some attorney is directing them.
Yes,
So that's
absolutely.
who you need to find out.
Find out who the attorney is.
City solicitor, county solicitor.
Right.
And I got their oaths, I subpoenaed their, well, I call it subpoena, there's an Open Public Records Act, you have to find out, I feel, if they have an oath. That's my, I get the oath before
Sure.
I take out.
That'd be good. The
Now I
more evidence you can collect,
Right.
their oath of office is evidence.
Right, and her,
So
my,
find out who it is, get a copy of their oath if you can. If they're a lawyer and you can't get a copy of their oath, then they have an oath as a lawyer, and it'll be on the state bar's website. Okay, the text.
that's not true in New Jersey.
It may not be true in New Jersey, but I know it is in Texas.
Right.
And it may be true but the Constitution requires all executive officers, okay, to have an oath.
But not judicial officers.
Constitution requires judicial officers too, of
So an
course.
attorney would be under the judicial or the executive?
Well, either one, it doesn't matter. That's why the attorneys have to have an oath. The attorneys have to have an oath.
Actually, when they get hired by the city,
Yeah,
they became part of the executive branch.
that's right,
Because it goes mayor,
right,
city solicitor,
right.
chief of police.
Okay, and so
Meaning they're connected. She's
Yeah.
the Department of Law head.
he's working, though they're working for the executive branch.
Right.
And
That's
so
where you
that's
get
where
it.
you go is the supreme law of the land, and they're required to have an oath, and they're not disclosing it, and then go after them as if they have the oath, and they're perjuring their oath, and that's what I would do,
And why would they be perjuring their oath in her situation?
because their codes only apply to commercial buildings. Of course, in yours, you are commercial. If it's your commercial building, then they can, you know, it's kind of, the way that stuff works, it comes down to really about whether you're accepting Federal Reserve notes or not. You're gonna have to build a case and explain it. What's the code enforcement officer want?
Right, and then you'll force them to do the research.
What's he wanting on your matter? What are they saying?
Complaint coming to inspect the complaint.
So they're saying that somebody filed a complaint and they're coming to inspect on what? On cleanliness or something, or what?
No, someone made a complaint about me
Yeah.
wearing a face
And
shield.
they're coming to check
They're
out
coming
the
to
complaint.
inspect my paperwork to see my log, client log, and my cleaning
your, client log,
client log and cleaning schedule, and I said to him, what does my paperwork have to do with a face shield complaint? And if I show you my paperwork, how does that get rid of your face shield complaint? And they couldn't answer me. They were
Yeah.
like, well, we're
yeah,
not here.
so it
for
was
the-"
a face shield complaint?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, it has
basically-
nothing to do with it, that's a fishing expedition.
They just made
And,
it up.
and
They
so,
just-
so that's, yeah, and so I say, well, that's a fishing expedition, and you're not allowed to, that's a fishing expedition.
Mhm,
Has nothing to do with the face shield complaint, this is a private member association, and so, yeah, that's where I'd go with it.
Yeah.
But then, if they're gonna, I'd immediately find out who their bar member is and file a bar grievance against them. And that'd nip that in the bud,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Because they know that this face shield is a bunch of crap, you know what I mean?
Well, it's funny that they came that day because hours before or the day before, they posted on the news that you don't have to wear your mask anymore if you're vaccinated.
Right.
So,
So how do you know we're not vaccinated?
right. And I said, I have the face shield on to protect my clients. And I said, are you here to force a mask on me? And they were like, no, we're not here for that. I said, so what are you exactly here for?
Yeah, right.
You know, we're not here for the face shield. I said, but you just said you're here for the face shield. Now you're here for the paperwork. They couldn't
Either you are or you're not,
Yeah,
you know?
they didn't answer.
And if you wanna investigate about the face shield, you're more than welcome to. But anything else is, you know, it's none of your damn business. That's what I would say. But again, file a bar grievance against the lawyer and you put down that this guy came and you got his number and his name, and so it's a conspiracy. The lawyer's telling him to do this, and that's a felony. Conspiracy to threaten, coerce, injure, and intimidate you in the free exercise of your rights not to have a face shield. You see what I'm saying? And violating your rights in the color of law. I mean, there's just the multiple felonies there.
He kept saying my supervisor. I'm gonna call my supervisor and see what he says. I said, okay, call your supervisor. I'll be here. But he's not getting in.
Yeah, right.
You know, give him my number. Oh, I'll see if he'll call you. I'm like, okay. But it was just kind of like stuttering and
Right.
not really knowing what to say.
Well, and
for him.
so that's, I find out what's the name of your supervisor, because now you got more people to add to the conspiracy.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
But for my situation, I think I was looking into this for the bank stuff.
It's the
Like-
same thing.
Well, yeah, it's kind of the same thing, but
Well, it is.
I can use that for this situation with the salon.
Every
Just everything,
yeah,
bar
go after the
grievances for
lawyer.
anything.
Yeah, anything. There's always a lawyer behind it somewhere. And so it's the lawyer that has to defend them, right? So if you think about it, then the lawyer's the one that's telling them what to do. It's always coming from a lawyer.
Yeah, and that's where I ended up, when even just getting the police to have the proper oath.
Right.
They made me talk to the city attorney.
And if you think about it, remember we were talking about it yesterday, and we're gonna talk about it again today. There's no courts, okay? These are all lawyers that are masquerading as judges, but they're really lawyers. And they're working for the prosecutor. And so, you know, it's completely, so you file bar grievances against any judges, you know what I mean? They wanna bring you into court, you file a bar grievance against the
Basically,
judge.
every time they enter our space, they're gonna know,
That's right,
the next thing they know, we're sending a bar or judicial complaint against them. If not even a criminal complaint.
well, and of course you gotta build a case.
Right.
And so if I would make up a criminal complaint and attach it to the bar grievance, right?
Well,
If you look at-
I filed it, yeah.
If you look at these bar grievances right here,
Send a video.
okay?
No, I can see.
This one's against FedEx. And what I did is I filed a lawsuit in Texas court. FedEx removed it into federal court. So I knew the lawyers that was involved, but I didn't know the chief counsel. So I went on the FedEx website and I used all the same evidence. So now what I did, I used these are all of the felonies. And I'm attaching my corporate denial affidavit. And I'm attaching a criminal complaint that I didn't file it anywhere, but I made it up back in, when did I notarize it? First of October 2012. Right. 1st of October 2012. And so it's just been sitting on my hard drive. And then there's, oh, let's see. Yeah, 1st of October 2012. And I attached all this stuff to it. And then there's the petition that I filed in district court. Okay, so it's got the court filing fees on it, court stamps. And I attached all of that to this as evidence. You see what I'm saying? So all of that stuff you do is evidence. An affidavit, an unrebutted affidavit's evidence.
Right, which my judge said he's not considering it proof of anything.
Yeah. So with this one is against a U.S. attorney. This one here. This one is against Aaron Neely Cox, yeah, U.S. attorney. And I'm attaching, I list all the felonies. I'm attaching a notice of demand that I sent to her, and there's also a corporate denial affidavit that was attached to that. And so that's where I accepted her oath of office, and she just completely ignored it. And so then I attached also a proof of service, a criminal complaint that I filed, that I served, and that's what this is. I served it right, and then there's a criminal complaint that I served on her. When I served it on Donald Trump, I served it on Jeff Sessions, I served it on a bunch of people. And so I got a criminal complaint that I served it on Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions. There's a bunch of stuff that I served it on. I'm going to use the restroom again. But the point is that all of that stuff helps you build your case. You know what I mean? And when you serve it on them and you have proof you served it on them, nobody rebutted it. It's unrebutted.
So your objective is just to get them to leave you alone, right? Right. And that's...
2 months ago, another health department came in for an employee quit and made a complaint done on a PMA, and that they're wearing face shields, their clients aren't wearing masks, they're not following all of the guidelines. So he emailed me and called me. I called him, I recorded it, our conversation, and then I sent an affidavit to him. So I put him on notice, and I didn't hear anything for 2 months. And then my husband said that Cuomo has his guys out, building department people going out and like checking, what did you say that they were doing? He has them out doing.
Well, now I think the building department is coming in as this guy's trying to check the guidelines, but also trying to fine them for, you know, maybe a broken exit sign, or you don't have your, you know, other things just to get in. So they're entering these.
They have cause.
Yeah, and they're writing up other tickets when, you know, because guidelines are what you're supposed to have on your reception desk is a thermometer, a check-in, hand sanitizer, social
Temperature
distancing,
log for your
maybe
employees.
the sign on the front door, the big sign like you must wear all this shit, and the social distancing
I don't have any of that.
stickers and all this shit, and then if it's not there, then they get to write you a summons.
So in your view, are you subject to the guidelines or not?
As a private member association, you're not.
Oh, no. And I have it on the door.
So them entering the premises is a trespass.
Right, that's why I said, do you have a
Which-
warrant?
That's right.
And he said, I don't need a warrant for a complaint, and I said, well, you do. I said, you do. And he said, well, you're not letting us in. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not letting you in. Oh, well, my supervisor's gonna come and, you know, we might
Good.
have to give you a violation or.
Okay, well, what's his name? That's what I'd be doing. What's his name so I can have it for my records?
Mhm.
And
Give me a
and by the way, who's your city attorney?
You have an employee number,
Mhm.
you have an ID, you may have a copy of
Your ID
authority.
card or something like that?
Yeah,
right.
where's the authority?
I
Yeah.
videotaped it, but I didn't get zoomed into their, I don't know, their
Yeah, I would have.
credentials on their chest.
I would have written it down. But anyways, 20/20 hindsight. You know,
Yeah.
after the fact,
Get
it's
better
easy
every
to.
time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
you do get better each
But-
time.
but-
Yeah.
But so, anyways,
So what's the crime? See, what I'm chasing them away with the official deprivation of civil rights as a public servant. They're denying or impeding any right, privilege, immunity, or power. They're denying me a right, privilege, immunity, or power as a public servant, which is a felony crime, 1 year in jail, no parole in New Jersey. Official deprivation of civil rights. I always thought, so you have to read their statute to say, okay, in your mind, you're saying this person here, who's a public servant, he's violating their code by doing this act right now. That becomes a crime.
Yep.
And they don't want a crime on their record, because they're gonna lose their pension and their liberty.
right.
So until such time, as of 3 weeks ago, I still had cops standing in front of me when I read them on camera. The Constitution clause that said that there's no they're not allowed to deprive me. And then I read the criminal statute. But the sergeant was ordering them to do it. So with them, it was on camera, I said to the sergeant who's on the sidewalk, are these men acting under your orders, or are they acting under their own will? Because these guys are just new to the force. They don't know what to do.
They're still responsible, but at any rate, so you have a conspiracy by definition.
But the judge is saying don't accept to the courts don't accept any more criminal complaints.
Right.
Which is why we now have them, and we're doing what you said, the bar and the judicial.
Right.
That's where we're at.
So I would do. And check out that SGT report video. You know, they might have some ideas on what to do. That video itself, I mean, you're gonna have to probably contact them, maybe go to their website and watch some of their videos, and maybe you'll get some ideas. You know what I mean? That would be what I would suggest. I know in Texas, I'm gonna, be contacting Randy Kelton and seeing what his ideas, picking his brain for some things. But,
Because all we're looking for is triggers that they said they just want to be left alone.
yeah,
And so,
they don't get it.
and I mean, literally, I have $100 million claim against the city, and while that's in place, they're still standing in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, that's how stubborn they are.
Well, it's more like they don't get the message, you know? They don't think you'll ever collect on it, otherwise they would be.
Which is
No
why I'm
way.
in front of the city council. And so, if it was
They
me,
don't think you're ever gonna get it until you,
I don't know. Well, okay. The question I would have is, have you studied your Constitution of New York? And so it's not even whether they're hurting. If they're violating a constitution, that to me is where it is, because the statutes, that puts it in their court to say, well, we're the ones who determine whether they're breaking the statute or not. To me, it's more important they were violating the state constitution and the federal constitution.
The federal constitution is the supreme law of the land, so that's the
Understand
one.
that. But there's, according to the court cases, a state can increase
Right,
the rights and privileges of their inhabitants and citizens through the Constitution. The state constitution can increase your rights and privileges. And that's in New Jersey, that's the case I have. So I had to find it in my Constitution. So that's what I would know the Constitution, so that when the guy comes up, I'm reading him the Constitution. Because just going with statutes, to me, it's helpful, but it's not the end game. The end game to me is the base of because all laws have to be constitutional or all statutes, correct?
Of course. What does the Constitution say? Article 6 says it's the supreme law of the land. It doesn't matter what state's constitution or statute say. So of course they do.
So we have to know the U.S. constitutional point that they're violating against you as a woman and a man, and also the state constitution. So it takes study. But that to me is more important than the statute.
That's why I file the bar grievances, because the lawyers are supposed to know. And I file the bar grievances because their boss, the people that have authority to disbar them for perjuring their oath, they're gonna send that complaint to them and say, you need to answer this.
Right. Why don't you leave these free citizens alone?
Well, whatever. They're gonna say you need to answer this, and if they don't have a good answer, there's a possibility they're gonna get disbarred, and they're gonna know that exactly that's what's gonna happen. And so that's why they're shitting bricks. Anyways, this is about District of Columbia courts. There's a bunch of these slides that are the same as they were in the other presentation yesterday, but they're relevant, and it's noon already, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so we've kind of got sidetracked a little bit. I'm going to try and go through this as quick as possible, so then we can take a lunch and come back, and we're going to talk about the bar grievances after lunch. So I'm not a lawyer. Well, I'm not a liar. I meant a lawyer. No, I meant a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything. I don't open any ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people don't know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know if or when their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, tax evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the pigs. And George Washington was a hemp farmer. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, and owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. If you call me a conspiracy theorist, then I don't trust you.
That's a good line.
Government's not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. An informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. So this is Downs versus Bidwell, 1901, U.S. Supreme Court, eliminating then from the opinions of this court all expressions unnecessary to the disposition of the particular case, and gleaning therefrom the exact point decided in each, the following propositions may be considered as established. Number 1, that the District of Columbia and the territories are not states within the judicial clause of the Constitution, giving jurisdiction in cases between citizens of different states. So the Constitution does not apply in the District of Columbia and the territories. That's what they're saying. At least the judicial clause. Article 3. That territories are not states within the meaning of revised statute 709, permitting writs of error from this court in cases where the validity of a state statute is drawn in question. So again, so you can't do a petition for a writ of error from a territory. And now, I've even tried to do petitions for a writ of error from like Texas, and the Supreme Court clerk sends it back and says you can't do a writ of error. You've got to do it certiorari. So that means Texas is a territory. That the District of Columbia and the territories are states, as that word is used in treaties with foreign powers, with respect to ownership, disposition, and inheritance of property. Well, gee, that sounds like a Satanic trust. That the territories are not within the clause of the Constitution providing for the creation of a Supreme Court and such inferior courts as Congress may see fit to establish. So, if you're in a territory, you don't get to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. You go to the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia. That where the Constitution has been once formally extended by Congress to territories, neither Congress nor the territorial legislature can enact laws inconsistent therewith. Now, I've made a summary right here of what that stuff says. So Article 1 and 4 basically say there's no Article 3 courts in the District of Columbia or the territories. And essentially that's all these courts are territorial. So there's no Article 3 courts, period. Unless we, the people, convene our common law jury like the people in Texas did. Number 2, there's no petitions for writ of error from territories or the District of Columbia. Number 3, the District of Columbia and the territories are states in treaties with foreign powers with respect to ownership, disposition, and inheritance of property, which is the Satanic Trust. So that's why they can sit there and put in their statutes, they'll sit there and say this statute applies, like in Title VI United States Code, which is Homeland Security, I think. Anyways, it says that this applies in the United States and the states, and then lists the states: Guam, American Samoa, and Puerto Rico. Because they are states under, you see what I'm saying? And most people don't realize that's what they're doing. They're listing the states that it applies in, and the states, they think, well, that means Texas. Anyways. Number 6, Congress has to formally extend the Constitution to the territories. If they don't do it, then...
Okay, so that's kind of, I don't know the grammatical form, but that's kind of like something that's pending. What has happened with number 6? It says Congress has to formally extend the Constitution to the territories.
Right.
So has it?
I don't know. I mean, they did with the Northwest Territories, you know, with the Northwest Ordinance, right? But did they anywhere else? And those territories were eventually admitted as states. And so the question is are they states that are really territories, or are they states that are really states? You know, some of the states were admitted prior to the Civil War.
Right.
Those ones would be actually states.
Right.
But everything after the Civil War is questionable. Arizona is a good example.
Right.
Arizona Constitution was in 1912, so I think Arizona is a territory.
Right. Now, how does that apply? Congress's extension of the Constitution to the state, to the territory known as the state of New Jersey.
Well, again, it's all in what you tell them.
So it's all about 1817. Or
Yeah.
1817.
That's right. This is one cite out of Downs versus Bidwell. We are also of the opinion that the power to acquire territory by treaty implies not only the power to govern such territory, but to prescribe upon what terms the United States will receive its inhabitants, and what their status shall be in what Chief Justice Marshall termed the American Empire. Again, that's why you want to be a preamble posterity, because they have the right to travel from state to state and enjoy all the rights and privileges of citizenship. If you're not, who knows what you are?
The property of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. You certainly don't have all the protections that you're entitled to, and you know, that's where Sharon is like got a, you know, I think she's full of it, and she's, I don't know, is she getting that from Anna?
No idea.
Anyways, it goes on. It says that the states could only delegate to Congress such powers as they themselves possessed, and as they had no power to acquire new territory, they had none to delegate in that connection. The logical inference from this is that if Congress had power to acquire new territory, which is conceded, that power was not hampered by the constitutional provisions.
Or they can acquire anything,
That's right.
which is.
And it doesn't have to be governed by the Constitution. We are therefore of the opinion that the island of Puerto Rico is a territory appurtenant and belonging to the United States, but not a part of the United States within the revenue clauses of the Constitution. So there's no federal income tax in Puerto Rico. I wonder if that has anything to do with why the IRS is domiciled in Puerto Rico.
They don't have to pay, they don't have to remit
Federal tax.
on income,
That's right.
which is, their income is the income tax they're collecting from everybody.
Yeah.
Pretty good deal.
Pretty good scam, ain't it?
It is.
Downs versus Bidwell was argued on the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th of 1901, and it was decided on the 27th of May in 1901. The Code of Law for the District of Columbia was enacted on March 3rd, 1901. I think, and I mean there's obviously no way to prove it, at least not yet, I think that the reason they passed the Code of Law for the District of Columbia was because they knew what was coming from the Supreme Court.
So prior to that, what was the code of law for Washington, D.C.?
There wasn't really a code of law for the Washington, D.C. And then the DC code brought in cesticate trusts, it brought in all sorts of stuff that's talked about.
1901.
Yeah. And the Judicial Code of 1911, they codified the Judicial Code in 1911, which is 10 years later. But, so the DC Code fallout was the cesticate trust, the presumption that you're dead, the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia. Before that, there was no Supreme Court of the District of Columbia. Commissioners, proctors, who were actually prosecutors, bailiffs, marshals, etc., were all paid royalties, and we're going to go through that stuff right now. Here's the executive administrators and collectors. Chapter 5 in the DC Code. Attorneys, solicitors, and proctors. A proctor is a prosecutor. So this is the fees. This is located at 31 Stat 1363. They get a fee on a trial before a jury in a civil or criminal cause, or before referees, or on a final hearing in equity or admiralty, a docket fee of $20. Okay, so the attorney, the prosecutor, gets the docket fee of $20. Provided that in cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction where the libellant recovers less than $50, the docket fee of his proctor shall be only $10. So I guess the docket fee, the fee to file a case, goes to the prosecutor. In cases at law where judgment is rendered without a jury, $10. In cases at law when the cause is discontinued, $5. In sire facia, and other proceedings on recognizances, $5. Remember, this is 1901. So $5, you got to figure it's like one of those Silver Eagles or something comparable. So it's like $100 he's getting. See what I'm saying? $125. Who knows what they're getting now? Probably getting more than that even.
So this is still the
says this in the code, section 1109?
Well, if anything, it's just been modified, right? But the point is these are all the fees that these prosecutors get. They're getting all sorts of fees. They're getting for each disposition taken and admitted and evidence and a cause, $2.50. For services rendered in a case removed from the Supreme Court to the district by an appeal to the Court of Appeals, $5. For examination by the district attorney before a judge or commissioner of persons charged with a crime, $5. For a day for the time necessarily employed. You know, back then, most people got, what, $1 a day or a couple dollars a day. For each day of the district attorney's attendance in court, $5. When an indictment for a crime is tried before a jury and a conviction is had, the district attorney may be allowed, in addition to the fees herein provided, a counsel fee in proportion to the importance of the cause, not exceeding $30. Damn, for each day. Oh, that doesn't say before each day.
I see there a conviction is had.
Right, right. So they convict you, then they get paid more money.
That's crazy.
There shall be paid to the district attorney 2% on all monies collected or realized in any suit or proceeding under the revenue law. So that's why they go and bring these IRS cases. That's why you got to make sure that, I mean, it's always coming from a lawyer. And this was 2%, this was back in 1901, who knows what it is now. On all monies collected or realized in a suit or proceeding under the revenue law conducted by him to which the United States is a party, in lieu of all costs and fees in such proceeding. Marshal fees. For service of any warrant, attachment, summons, capias, or other writ, except execution or venire, or a summons or a subpoena for a witness, $1 for each person on whom service may be made. Provided, however, that the service of any citation, summons, notice, or rule issued by the probate court, the fee shall be 50 cents. For the keeping of personal property attached on mesne process, such compensation as the court on petition setting forth the facts under oath may allow. For serving venires and summoning every 12 men as grand or petite jurors, $4 or 33 1/3 cents each. For holding an inquisition or other proceeding before a jury, including the summoning of a jury, $5. For serving a writ of subpoena, a witness, 50 cents, and no further compensation for a copy, summons, or notice for a witness. For summoning appraisers, 50 cents. For executing a deed prepared by a party or his attorney, $1. For drawing and executing a deed, $5. For copies of writs or papers furnished at request of any party, 10 cents a folio. For every proclamation in admiralty, 30 cents. For serving an attachment in rem or libel in admiralty, $2. So proclamations are always done in admiralty. Think about it. That's what they're saying there. Proclamations are always done in admiralty. For the necessary expenses of keeping boats, vessels, or other property attached or libeled in admiralty, not preceding $2.50. So if there's an attachment, it's admiralty. When the debt or claim in admiralty is settled by parties without a sale of the property, a commission of 1% on the first $500 of the claim or decree, and 1/2 of 1% on the excess of any sum thereof over $500. Provided that when the value of the property is less than the claim, such commission shall be allowed only on the appraised value thereof. For sale of vessels or other property under process in admiralty and claim, for receiving and paying over money, 2.5% on any sum under $500 and 1.5% on the excess of any sum over $500. Okay, well, it's well known that, you know, sheriffs get royalties on stuff that they seize, right? If you bring an action and you get the sheriff to come down and seize it, he's going to get a piece of the action. And so this is, a lot of this is like that. This is marshal's fees, right? And so this is all the little fees and stuff. And it continues. For attending court and bringing in and committing prisoners and witnesses for the term, $5 a day. for attending examinations before a commissioner and bringing in, guarding, and returning prisoners charged with a crime and witnesses, $2 a day, and for each deputy not exceeding 2, necessarily attending, $2 a day. For fuel, lights, and other contingencies that may accrue in holding the courts, the amount of his expenses necessarily incurred. For levying upon leasehold or freehold property and land and selling the same, a commission of 1.5%. See, they get it. They steal your land and sell it. Levying, that's for the government. On the proceeds to the amount of the debt, for levying upon leasehold or freehold property and land where no sale thereof is made, $1. For levying upon personal property and selling the same, a commission of 3% on the proceeds of the amount of the debt and the reasonable cost for storage, keeper, insurance, advertising, and auctioneer. For levying upon personal property where no sale thereof is made, $2.50, and the reasonable cost of storage, keeper, and insurance incurred for the preservation of the same, provided that the court, on notice to all parties in interest, may allow additional compensation. Commissioners' fees. That's what you find in these courts, right? They're commissioners is what they are, really. Drawing a complaint with oath and jurat to the same, 50 cents. Copy of complaint with service to same, 30 cents. Issuing a warrant of arrest, 75 cents. Issuing a commitment and making copy of the same, $1. Entering a return, 15 cents. Issuing a subpoena or subpoenas in any one case with 5 cents for each necessary witness in addition to the first 25 cents. Drawing a bond of defendant and sureties, taking acknowledgement of same, and justification of surety, 75 cents. Administering an oath, oath to witnesses to attendance and travel, 10 cents. Recognizance of all witnesses in a case when the defendant or defendants are held for court, 50 cents. Transcripts of proceedings when required by order of court and transmission of original papers to court, 60 cents. Copy of warrant of arrest with certificate to same when the defendant is held for court and the original papers are not sent to court, 40 cents. Order in duplicate to pay all witnesses in a case for first witness, 30 cents, and for each additional witness, 5 cents. And for oath to each witness as to attendance and travel, 5 cents. More commissioners. For hearing and deciding on criminal charges and reducing the testimony to writing when required by law or order of court, $5 a day for the time necessarily employed, provided that not more than 1 per diem shall be allowed in a case unless the account shall show that the hearing could not be completed in 1 day, when 1 additional per diem may be specially approved. See, that's what these judges are getting, all these commissions. And allowed by the court, provided further that not more than 1 per diem shall be allowed per any 1 day, and provided further that no per diem shall be allowed for taking a bond or recognizance and passing on the sufficiency of the bond or recognizance and the sureties thereon when the bond or recognizance was taken after the defendant had been committed to prison upon a final commitment, or has given bond or been recognized for his appearance at court, or when the defendant has been arrested on a capious or bench warrant, or was in custody under any process or order of a court of record. For the examination and certificate in cases of the application for discharge of poor convicts in prison for non-payment of fine or fine and costs and all services connected therewith, $3. For attending to a reference on a litigated matter in a civil cause at law and equity, in admiralty or in pursuance of an order of the court, $3 a day. For taking and certifying depositions to file in civil cases, 10 cents for each folio. For each copy of the same furnished to a party on request, 10 cents for each folio. For issuing any warrant under the 10th article of the Treaty of August 9th, 1842 between the United States and the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland against any parties charged with any crime or offense set forth in said articles, $2. For issuing any warrant under the provisions of the Convention for the surrender of criminals between the United States and the King of France, concluded at Washington, November 9th, 1843, $2. For hearing and deciding upon the case of any person charged with any crime or offense and arrested under the provisions of said treaty or of said convention, $5 a day for the time necessarily employed. Such commissioner shall keep a complete record of all proceedings before them in criminal cases in a well-bound book, which record book shall be delivered to and be preserved by the clerk of the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia on the death, resignation, removal, or expiration of the term of the commissioner, for which record the commissioner shall receive no compensation. So a record of all of that is kept, and the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia keeps that. So this is more of the DC Code 1901. Be it further enacted that interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely the third, the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. And at 31 Stat 1432, the legal estate to be the cestacea use. And at 31 Stat 1230, they presume you're dead. This is 31 Stat 1911. The Supreme Court of the District of Columbia in general term shall make rules regulating the practice and pleading before justices of the peace in relation to appeals for their judgments not inconsistent with law, and may alter and amend the same from time to time, and shall also fix the fees to be charged by the said justices of the peace, and alter them from time to time as justice may require, provided that in all cases of concurrent jurisdiction, the defendant may remove the case for trial into the Supreme Court of the district by the writ of certiorari. So that's I think why they went to writ of certiorari for the Supreme Court of the United States, so people don't know they're doing a writ of certiorari. They don't know whether they're really getting the Supreme Court of the United States or the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia. This is Balzac versus People of Puerto Rico, U.S. Supreme Court. The United States District Court is not a true United States court established under Constitution Article 3 to administer the judicial power of the United States, but was created by the virtue of the sovereign congressional faculty granted under Article 4, Section 3, of making all needful rules and regulations respecting a territory belong to the United States. So, it's admitting that it's Article 4, Section 3, the U.S. District Court. That's in Puerto Rico. Now, that could be argued in any federal court anywhere. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude is set as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist. And that's the so-called 13th Amendment, Section 1. And so they just put on a show trial in a kangaroo court and sell you into slavery, and it's quite simple. Most people have no idea what happened. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. And so, you know, the judge is making money, prosecutors making money, everybody's making money. That's why you got to file a bar grievances. You file bar grievances against the judge because the judge is not a real judge. Okay? He's actually a commissioner. He's still an attorney. That's why they have in their statutes they have to be attorneys. So they're just attorneys. They just got this job. That's it. And they get these royalties. And they should be put to death. That's what should happen. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. A penitentiary. This is all coming from the Roman cult. Has meant a penitent, an ordainer of penitence, a place for penitence, and that's where you go and repent. Anderson's Law Dictionary, 1889 edition. Penance is a punishment imposed for a crime by the ecclesiastical laws. So it's all Roman cult. Everybody in jail is Roman cult. It's an acknowledgement of the offense. Penance may be changed into a sum of money to be applied for pious uses, called commuting. And that's Jacob A. New Law Dictionary, 1750, but they're citing Coke in Book 3 and Book 4 of Coke's Institutes and the Laws of England. That's in the 1500s. Under the international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre, Because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. It's all warfare. A mixed war is one that's made on one side by a public authority and the other by mere private persons. Pecuniary cause, such as arise either from withholding ecclesiastical dues. Pecuniary is for withholding ecclesiastical dues, or the doing or neglecting some acts related to the church, whereby some damage accrues to the plaintiff, the church, the Roman cult, towards obtaining satisfaction forthwith. He's permitted to institute a suit in the spiritual court. It's all the Roman cult. And these bail priests get to decide. That's why they wear the military uniform. They're Roman cult, they're bail priests. Such, for instance, are the subtracting and withholding of tithes from the parson or the vicar. The non-payment of ecclesiastical dues to the clergy as pensions, mortuaries, compositions, and the like. And that's Holthouse A New Law Dictionary, 1850 edition, but they're citing Book 3 in Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England. The words penal and penalty in their strict primary sense denote a punishment, whether corporal or pecuniary. Gee, that sounds like pecuniary. Whether corporal or pecuniary, imposed and enforced by the state for a crime or offense against its laws. So obviously the state in that case is the Roman cult. The noun penalty is defined forfeiture to be forfeited for non-compliance with an agreement. They're assaulting you with one of their so-called contracts. The words forfeit and penalty are substantially synonymous. A penal action is one founded entirely on statute. Remember, all statutes are martial law. It's all come from the Roman cult and brought for the sole object of recovering a penalty or forfeiture imposed as punishment for a specific offense. A penal action is an action on a penal statute, an action for recovery of penalty given by statute. Where an action is founded entirely upon a statute and the only object of it is to recover a penalty or forfeiture, such action is a penal action. I don't know if they have a penal code in New York. I know they got a penal code in Texas. And I know there's a penal code in California. A lot of the states have penal codes. It's all Roman cult. A penal action is a civil suit brought through the recovery of a statutory forfeiture when inflicted as punishment for an offense against the public. That's why Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. That is so powerful against this kind of thing. But at the same time, that's why you file a bar grievance. Anytime you're dealing with anything, file a bar grievance against the bar member. A penal action is a civil suit brought for recovery of a statutory forfeiture when inflicted as punishment for an offense against the public. Such actions are civil actions, on the one hand closely related to criminal prosecutions, and on the other to actions for private injuries in which the party aggrieved may by statute recover punitive damages. So they're wanting Federal Reserve notes. So Clearfield Doctrine applies. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen where private, corporate, commercial paper, and securities is concerned. For purposes of suits, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. So when you pay that filing fee, when you pay that fine, you just justified the whole thing. You pay that fine, it's like under international law, if a nation comes and makes war on you, and you enter into a treaty with them, then they're justified. You just justified it by making that treaty. causes and necessities for taking up arms. That's why these people are nothing but liars and thieves. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury and affecting cases both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. And that's taken from the causes and necessities for taking up arms, 1775. The law of war can no more wholly dispense with retaliation than can the law of nations, of which it is a branch. Yet civilized nations acknowledge retaliation as the sternest feature of war. That's Libra Code, Article 12. Law of nations is international law. Banks are international law. Military dictatorship is international law. Uniform Commercial Code is international law. It's actually private international law. All codes, rules, and regulations are international law. There's the Unidroit, negotiable instruments. Gee, that sounds like Federal Reserve notes, bank notes. Civil procedure, gee, that sounds like their kangaroo court. Civil liability, more kangaroo court. Secured transactions, that's mortgages. Legal status of women, maintenance obligations, contracts in general, banking law, well, that goes to negotiable instruments, doesn't it? Transportation, that goes to airlines, buses, all that stuff. Leasing, franchising, hotels, insurance, anything related to marriage, divorce, children, municipal law. Remember, Roman law, civil law, municipal law are convertible phrases that mean the same thing. Municipal law. All falls under Unidroit. Unidroit controls and governs the Uniform Commercial Code. The Uniform Commercial Code is private international law. Canada and the United States are signatories to the Unidroit Statute. As of this date, 63 countries have signed on to the Unidroit Statute. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases and mean the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. And the Roman law maxim, let he who will be deceived be deceived. So they lie, they cheat, they're nothing but thieves. Roman law, civil procedures, Roman law. There's the Texas rules of civil procedure, there's federal rules of civil procedure. I guarantee you there's New Jersey rules of civil procedure. Every state has rules of civil procedure. There's the Texas rules of civil procedure. All mortgages fall under Roman law. Negotiable instrument law is a subset of Roman law. That's why, just by putting a sign on the wall, if I had a business, a storefront, I would put a sign on the wall and I would say, pursuant to U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, right? Which is the gold, no state shall make anything but gold or silver coin, lawful tender in the payment of a debt. I'd say something like, pursuant to U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, we always prefer lawful money, gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, we can accept the fake money, the military script, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the in your case, Venmo, fake money, and the whatever kinds of fake, credit card fake money. You see what I'm saying? That's what I would do. And put it up on the wall, and for one thing, it would educate people about it, but also that's a disclaimer, and that makes it hard for them to collect taxes, and especially if you're arranging your affairs not to collect taxes, and you make it like if you had an invoice, put it on the invoice. You see what I'm saying? Like when the trusts give you an invoice, put it on the trust invoice for services rendered. You see what I'm saying? Put it in a little footnote at the bottom, and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I do that on all of my price lists and stuff like that, and it makes it hard for them to, like, I've never heard from them. They don't contact me, and you know, that kind of thing. And so then, like the sales tax, all you're doing is collecting it, but if you're objecting, again, it comes down to the Federal Reserve notes. It's because of that. And that's why that sales tax thing talks about 18 U.S.C. Section 8, which says that Federal Reserve notes are obligations of the United States, and then 31 U.S.C. 31, I can't remember what the site was. It's actually, I had it up here, but in there it says that Federal Reserve notes are not, you can't tax them. So that means that you're not subject to sales tax anyways.
And when you don't pay sales tax, the accountant told me that I had to, what did he say about my tax register? That I had to call the.
See, you have a tax registration number.
Yes.
And so when you registered, then that's a contract. And so that's why you get them to fill it out. So then it puts it on them. And so then you tell them, go look this guy up. He's the one that gave me this affidavit under penalty of perjury saying that he's not subject to the tax.
Well, if I wanted to stop collecting tax, the accountant said that I would have to that tax number, I would have to dissolve it.
Okay, well, that'd be a good idea too, to do that, for sure.
But he said that would put up a red flag.
Well, it might, but again, and what you'd say is justify it, you know, say pursuant to Article 10, Article U.S. Constitution for the United States of America, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, I should only be accepting gold or silver coin, and this tax is for the use of the private money system, the Federal Reserve notes, and we put up a sign on the wall saying that we prefer gold or silver coin, and we can only accept the Federal Reserve notes because that's what people are coercing us into doing it. It's not because we want them, and so therefore, but then you got to be prepared for that argument to make that. But if you go and lay the foundation, then it's going to be hard for them to proceed to do anything about it. You see what I'm saying? That's what I would do, so then they can give you gold or silver coin. I don't know, how much does it cost for your private membership association?
It was just the initial setup.
Sorry?
It was just the setup fee.
Right. How much was that? $2? Okay. So you could, $2 in silver would be, you could, one silver dime or something like that. It'd be more than one silver dime. It'd be maybe 2 silver dimes. I don't know what silver dimes are going for. That's the ones that I got back there that are the real silver, the 90% silver. And so, tell them that you can, and put it on there, okay? We will accept, 1 silver dime prior to, coined, prior to 1964. That's 90% silver. We'll accept 1 of those for your sign-up fee. Either that or, as a less desirable alternative, we can take the $2 in commercial paper. I'd call it commercial paper. You see what I'm saying? And just put it all over the place, you know, on your whatever sign that says the $2 sign-up fee, and so then they know they can give you the $2, but you're asking for the dime. You see what I'm saying? That's lawful money, and they got nothing to say. Yes, Nelson, what were you going to say?
Oh, just a question. If she keeps her registration, it doesn't put up a red flag to collect sales tax. And if someone insists on paying it, you're not going to say you can't be a client.
That's true.
So
That's
I
true.
would just keep it and say, all right, you may be accepted. I'm going to have to file it and pay it.
Right, and so
And that way she's free from any.
So then make it available, and so then maybe you don't want to revoke the registration.
Right. Then that's.
You could just start, and again, it's one step at a time. So that would probably be a good idea, because then you could be getting your head around. At some point, you're gonna revoke it, but right now you're just working towards it. You're gonna make the exemption certificate available for people that don't want to pay it, and you're going to put on your stuff that we prefer gold or silver coin. You see what I'm saying? For those, you could actually say that for those who wish to pay sales tax, we'll be happy to collect it from you. You see what I'm saying?
And let's say only 10 people people pay sales tax. That
Right.
would be the only thing that I show,
They show when you pay, that's true.
and that wouldn't bring up a red flag to where I've had $3,000-4,000 in sales tax quarterly, and then went down to, I don't know, I'm just throwing a number,
Well,
$200.
It won't be, yeah, it might, but at least you have your ducks in a row and you're making it available. But here's the state of New York exemption certificate, and here I've got them all signed here on file if you want to look at them.
And do they show up with badges and at your door, the IRS, or do they send letters to you? Like,
I don't know. They might show up, but again, if they did, if you have your sign up, if you have everything there, there's not much they can say. See what I'm saying? But, so you never know.
have everything in order for
And remember, the U.S. attorney gets paid a royalty, so the best thing to do is send it. If it's state of New York, it's going to be the New York Attorney General, okay? That's going to be collecting money for any proceeding, okay? So you make sure and accept the Attorney General's oath, and you make sure and take away his presumptions, you know, and go through and explain how send them a notice of demand is what I would do, and by registered mail, so you got proof you sent it to them, and so you're showing that you know the game, and it's all federal anyways, and so they're Federal Reserve notes. They're not supposed to be taxed, and so you gotta any proceeding that gets brought against you, some attorney's gonna have to do it. And if no matter how pissed off that tax collector gets, if he goes to his attorney and his attorney says, we ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole, then it ain't getting touched. You see what I'm saying? So you gotta, that's the guy you gotta neuter, okay? The U.S. attorney and your local district attorney, and then the state attorney general. You see what I'm saying? Those are the guys. I wouldn't necessarily file a bar grievance against them, but I would send them a notice of demand, and then your notice of demand is great evidence with a criminal complaint for the bar grievance. You see what I'm saying? And so again, the notice of demand is going to give you the stuff that you want to lay the foundation because for the potential case that might come. You see what I'm saying? And if you do it properly, chances are you'll never hear from them. You know, but you got to be ready for it. And so you got the private member association. You're asking for silver coin, but you can accept the fake money. And so I would spell it all out. I'd say, and show them, send them copies of it all. We prefer of the sign-up sheet. You see what I'm saying? Where it says we will accept one pre-1964 dime that's 90% silver as payment for your sign-up fee. And then as a less desirable alternative, we can accept the Federal Reserve notes, the IOUs, the military script, and I'd list all that stuff there because that's all what it is. It's kind of in your face, but you kind of got to be in your face, you know. And so I would list it all. That's the way I would do it, anyways. It's up to you. You got to decide. But and I'd send them a copy of that thing, the sign-up sheet where they sign up, and what you put on there. And send them a copy of the sign that you got on the wall, if you got one on the wall. You see what I'm saying? And all that stuff for sales tax. And then, you know, make sure and accept their oath of office. And, you know, so you attach, like my notice of demand is like about 20 pages, so you might not want to put all that in there, it's up to you. But all you really need to do, if you're concerned about taxes or city codes and their enforcement, is show them that none of that applies to you because you're not a government employee. You see what I'm saying? And
But do they still have me in a way in their jurisdiction because I still have those licenses current right now?
you do have a business license. Are you planning on letting that expire?
Yeah.
With this private member association, can you let it expire?
You don't need them.
Right.
With that.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need them.
So then, I would tell them that. association doesn't require a business license. And so, there is one in place right now, but it expires on this date, and I'm not renewing it. You see what I'm saying? And so, once it's there, and so, again, it's your intent is the important thing, and you're upfront with them. You just tell them what the deal is, and that's what I would do.
Well, my accountant argued when I was explaining this that he was saying that the IRS tax people are gonna come and they're gonna sit in front of your salon and do research on it and say, what is your salon, how is it different from the salon down the street?
Might. Why can't it be a private member association? People join the club, you know what I mean? And it's still a private member association. What's the requirements? You know, I'd make sure you got your ducks in a row, make sure everything's in a row.
Yeah.
And I would make sure that, you know, again, we were talking about is make sure that it doesn't, you know, have a lot of stuff on the books, that there's a lot of expenses, you know, and that kind of thing. And, you know, they might, you never know. But, you know, I don't know if that could be considered harassment. I don't think they really could do that. You know, they might threaten to. Remember, that accountant works for the IRS, so he wants to protect his money coming in. And he's probably getting commissions on the amount that he collects, you know.
May I ask that question?
Yeah, there is a royalty, there is a commission. I've seen it, but I just don't know where it is now. But I've seen it for sure. Anyways, all mortgages fall under Roman law, negotiable instrument law, Federal Reserve notes, stocks, bonds, etc. is a subset of Roman law. Bar members write all mortgage contracts. Roman law's everywhere. Bar members have decided every detail involving Roman law in America. Have bar members told you the nature of mortgages or negotiable instruments? And so, and yeah, I wouldn't, what I would do is just kind of, just gradually work into it, you know. Do what you're comfortable with, and you'll be surprised at what happens. Just do what you're comfortable with. Only push it as much as you're comfortable with, and you're starting to do things to separate it, and that's good. So you know, just do what you're comfortable with. Don't do something you're not comfortable with. You know, one step at a time. Here a bit, here a little, there a little. Even the scriptures tell us to do that. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't rush. You know, just a little bit here and a little bit there. It's good that you're talking to your accountant and you know, letting him know what's happening, that what you want to do and your objectives, and it's just one step at a time. And just tell them that, you know, tell them that you're thinking about it. You haven't decided one way or the other yet, but it's just something that's been going through your mind. You know what I mean? And all of this requires Roman law. There you go. The judge works for the state, the prosecutor works for the state, the police or witness works for the state. The vast majority of the disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the police, and the only witness, also the police, all represent the same party, and since no corpus delicti, mens rea, or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. And what you have is this guy right here is the guy that is the enemy, and this guy here is sitting there playing stupid, and so these guys are conspiring together, and so, you know, that's why Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, this is all District of Columbia Court. That's exactly what it is. They're all DC courts.
Could you,
What's that?
what are corpus delicti? Would it be too involved to describe?
Corpus delicti is a body.
Okay.
Who's been damaged?
And mens rea?
Mens rea is an act or an intent. Acts reus is intent. And mens rea is actual damage. Corpus delicti is a body that's been damaged, right? Who is the complainant? I want to see him right here.
Right, state of New York.
whatever, that's right.
Alright, thanks.
Judge wears a military uniform, judge sits there and plays stupid. If you fail to follow some obscure rule or procedure, they sell you into slavery. Everything they do is a fraud and a nullity. If there's any place where you go and you get your rights violated, guaranteed it's going to be in their so-called courts. Guaranteed. And you have to know the law, and you have to set it up properly to appeal it, or you'll just lose. And that's why I just file a bar grievance and the judicial complaints, and I do everything not to go in there. I file bar grievances, judicial complaints, and make it so that they don't want me in there. When acting to enforce a statute and subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of the municipal court is acting as an administrative officer, not in a judicial capacity. Courts administering or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension for an agent for the involved agency. Okay, so it's all administrative. When there's a statute involved, it's administrative. So it's all the Roman cult. It's all DC. That's why Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Nips it in the bud. It's one page. You go and file 50 pages of stuff in there, that judge ain't going to read it. They just pick it up like a lump, and they just put it over there and say, denied. They don't read it. It's the accepted rule not only of the state courts, but of the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes as a bought and paid for court. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, and otherwise act as mere clerks of the involved agency. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. That's why I told that federal judge, I said, everything you do is brutum fulmen. It's an empty noise. They don't have power to exercise powers of a judge. They're bought and paid for clerks. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge, the proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Say.
What does Marshall say?
I don't know. It's a cite from Coke in the 1500s. Ask Coke.
Okay, I'll ask him.
It's sometime in the Roman Empire or older, probably. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district, this is all consistent with Downs versus Bidwell. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress can give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. International Law Rule, adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction, federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only the statutory, but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discussed. The civil law is effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction or federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws. And so I don't care if it's state law, it's still a federal law. Right here, International Law Rule. Jurisdiction over federal areas within the states. Report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas within the States, Part 2. A text of the law of legislative jurisdiction submitted to the President, submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957, pages 158 to 165. And this requires a military dictatorship. And a lot of these we read yesterday. Congress claiming its martial law power to declare war, suppress insurrections, repel invasions, impose martial law in the United States, and never discontinued it. The 14th Amendment is an extension, this just nails it. The 14th Amendment is an extension of national military powers presently used in a municipal character. Municipal courts, and enforced by municipal laws stretch far beyond their original limitations and enforced by Article 1 tribunals. So Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 nails it. They got no business in New Jersey or Texas. Article 1 of the Libra Code, martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of the hostile army proclaims its martial law. Martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief. There has been none, or by special mention in a treaty of peace. I've read a lot of treaties of peace, and there's nothing in there saying about martial law ending. There's three kinds of martial law: full martial law, declaration of martial law is issued, troops put on the street, used only during wartime, used on a foreign country when actually invaded by foreign power to put down an armed rebellion. Martial law proper is law of the armed forces when a captain tells a private what to do. It's enforced by court-martials. Martial law rule, law of necessity and emergency, allows the domestic use of martial law powers as used during peacetime and can continue for centuries during a military occupation. Ex parte Milligan. Martial law affects chiefly the police and the collection of public revenue, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader, and refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the Army, its safety, and the safety of its operations. That's General Orders 100, Article 2. That's why we're getting the New World slave flag. They want us to be safe. They want their slaves to be safe. My book is now available. There it is right there. Trump, a true American patriot or not. Mike Blackwell babysat me through the whole process. He asked me to write the book. It took me about 2 weeks to prepare the manuscript. And then it took about 6 months for Mike to babysit me through the process of getting ready to publish. I think this back part here says the most. It says, read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold America into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the Satanic Roman cult in our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And I'll tell you, they nailed it there. I never wrote that. They wrote that, the publisher. You can order my book from Amazon.com or my website. It's $30 plus shipping. The price is the same either place. I prefer you order from my website. And if you order from my website, it'll be autographed. So if you want the book autographed, order from my website. But if you have something special you want to say in the autograph, let me know. Do you want to know the origins of the deep state? Who is behind it? Do you want to know why it's called the Trump administration? Do you want to know what an administration is? It's actually an ecclesiastical office. Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? Do you want to know who owns Congress? Somebody owns Congress. Do you want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? Do you want to know how you have become a slave? Do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? Do you want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? Oh, there's the first international trip of Obama and Trump. And Obama, they're laughing and chuckling and having a good old time. This picture's actually in my book too. And when Trump went to visit him, he wasn't too happy, was he? Justice is coming. Maybe he'll get his neck stretched. I'd certainly like to see that. In reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. Thank you, Donald Trump. Martial law is the public law of necessity. Necessity calls it forth. Necessity justifies its exercise, and necessity measures the extent and degree to which it may be employed. That necessity is no formal, artificial, legalistic concept, but an actual, factual one. It is the necessity of taking action to safeguard the state against insurrection, riot, disorder, or public calamity. What constitutes necessity is a question of fact in each case. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. Copies of these documents can be found on my website, linked under my recent videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries, and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin. but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the fake money, the military script, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. And this is Gold Reserve Act of 1934, as Section 15, as used in this act. The term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States, and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. So Federal Reserve notes are military script. They're meant for internal use of the government only. Forced loans is probably the single most important thing for a military dictatorship. It makes it so the courts presume that you do not pay a debt. Makes everybody into paupers, and paupers have no rights except what they allow you to have. Gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, barter is the money of peasants, and debt is the money of slaves. At common law, only gold and silver coin a legal tender. If you want common law, it requires honest measures. The single most important part for a Republican form of government is lawful money. Lawful money is not Federal Reserve notes, it's not bank notes, not forced loans, not discharge debt, it's not international law. Federal Reserve notes are commercial paper, they're a forced loan, they're IOUs. All commercial paper falls into two categories. It's either a promissory note or an IOU. A requirement for a promissory note is it has to have a promise to pay. Gold certificates and silver certificates were promissory notes. You can never ever pay a debt with the Federal Reserve notes. It's impossible. The best, the absolute best you can do with the Federal Reserve note is discharge debt with limited liability. But check out my other videos: Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman Cult playlist, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1 through 7, Do-It-Yourself How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service in the Draft, Martial Laws Here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself Free Mail, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts 1 through 19, Canada Border Pigs playlist, the Bar Members and their Satanic Connections playlist. There is a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, so divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. Discharge falls into the law of nations, international law. Cryptocurrency is not a forced loan. Anything can be used as a medium of exchange as long as we agree to it. It's called barter. Gold and silver coin is exchanging one thing of value for something else of equal value. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it. I've got a private group on Facebook. I've got a couple of them, but I haven't been there in months, and I'm not interested in going back. And if I was there, I'd be deleting people or banning people off those groups. I have a freeless private group called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants and a Google private group called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Yahoo deleted their private groups, so I don't have the Yahoo private group anymore. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. I've got a library profile on Patreon, Sovereignty International, and I've got a MeRe group. Requires citizenship to be opposite of what the founders intended, okay? They have to have slaves. Congress converted citizenship into the opposite of what the founders intended for the purpose of enslaving everybody. And while the 14th Amendment does not create a national citizenship, it has the effect of making that citizenship paramount and dominant instead of derivative and dependent upon state citizenship. And that's Colgate versus Harvey, U.S. Supreme Court. The amendment reversed and annulled the original policy of the Constitution. The 14th Amendment creates, or at least recognizes for the first time, a citizen of the United States as distinct from that of the states. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states, as that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. Citizenship is a political status and may be defined and privilege limited by Congress. Every taxpayer is assessed a trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. That's a summary of Henry Boland's. Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and history and no longer remember that the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve were born from the throes of armed resistance to tyranny and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. Ain't that the truth? Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fees to the use of the religious houses. That's the Roman cult, folks. Thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits while the season of the land remained in the nominal fee, who was held by the courts of equity. That's the Roman cult, folks. Then under the direction of the clergy, the Roman cult, to be bound in conscience to account to assesticate use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. And that's taxes. And it is for these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. Our practitioners, that sounds like bar members. This is where it's codified, 15 U.S.C. section 44. Corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts trust or association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And then it goes through the same definition. It doesn't have shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And that's the Sesticate Trust would fall in the second half there. So the birth certificate creates a Sesticate Trust. Many people are getting birth certificates authenticated by the Secretary of State, thereby claiming to capture the account with the Treasury. Doing this puts you into international law. And people are trying to get something for nothing, in my opinion. Any person who pays, this is Article 22 of the Convention concerning the International Administration of Estates of Deceased Persons, which is found in Hague Conference on Private International Law, 2nd October 1973. Any person who pays or delivers property to the holder of the certificate drawn up and where necessary recognized in accordance with this convention shall be discharged unless proved that the person acted in bad faith. Notice they say discharged. It's not paid. Can't be paid. Any person who has acquired assets of the estate from the holder of a certificate drawn up and where necessary recognized in accordance with this convention shall, unless it's proved that he acted in bad faith, be doomed to have acquired them from a person having power to dispose of them. And that's Article 23 of the same convention concerning the International Administration of Estates of Deceased Persons. The birth certificate's a fraud. If you participate in the fraud, you cannot claim fraud. If you participate in the fraud, you go into international law, and it's all fake money. And so, you know, you're going into international law on a whole bunch of cases, and you may just turn yourself into a slave, and you may not get anything. And I think that this is all Jesuits that are circulating this stuff, quite frankly. This is the New South Wales Attorney General's Office. That's Australia. Birth certificate content review. And this is the page. The highlighted part is what we're going to read here in a minute. It says a birth certificate is used to establish identity and enable individuals to establish their rights and discharge their obligations in respect of services provided by the government and private sectors. And so that's in Australia. Crown. That's the Crown. Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or the property belonging to the United States. Remember that Balzac versus Puerto Rico talked about this. It's the same in Canada, same all over the place. Owned means subject to the regulations under the Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. And all corporations are agents of the government. Every corporation, for all its purposes, is an agency of the bitch. And that's Section 3 of the Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God, therefore non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. And that's right, participating in the birth certificate scam is Satan, in my opinion. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steam at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. And on Steam, don't forget to vote and make your comments. That's the front page of my channel. The subscribe button's already clicked. That's why it's not red. And click the bell, and it'll look like it's vibrating. The arrow's pointing at the bell. That's why they have to pass statutes for common law offense. That's why all statutes are edicts under martial law. We We can't begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. They would be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. There's no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. Legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. Under military dictatorship, there is no law, which is why they're required to pass statutes for common law crimes like murder and assault. This creates civil law, which creates a democracy. In other words, with a democracy, the mob can change it. And so it's mob rule, right? You get as any majority and they'll change the law. And that's exactly what you have under civil law. In military dictatorship, you have a democracy, and a democracy is international law. I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. The website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for the videos only, $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But I'm not a liar. Well, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. Now, let me just qualify that. It's unlimited email consultations. And because I don't do voicemail unless I get an extra donation. And I also, it doesn't include form review or document review. Anyways, the only power that the New World Order of Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception. My agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. I've got an Arlington private information share. There's Land D training. There's about 3 videos of that. Estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll road notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation signature training, third-party witness training, and federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration, criminal complaint training. There's about 3 videos of that. There's the lawsuit training. There's 1 video of that. There's going to be more. Any other training requests, if it's something that I can do or haven't done already, I'm open to ideas. There's also the Northeast Private Information Shares a video are up there. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. And all exclusive content is available on my website or on Patreon, and you can buy a subscription there. Taxes cause the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you're the slave. You're forced to work for them for nothing. It's more and more difficult to be free. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may be pronounced as self-evident. It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or its permission. McCullough versus Maryland, U.S. Supreme Court, 1819. There's 2 ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by sword, the other is by debt. This is the Supremacy Clause, Article 6, Clause 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, shall be the supreme law of the land, and judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. The Constitution is not a document for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government. A nation of sheep will beget a government of wolves. It's the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government. It's all about territorialism. Everywhere is a territory, a DC territory. For U.S. citizens, every state is a territory. They're still limited by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and Article 6, Clause 2. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, to exercise exclusive legislative jurisdiction in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square. And then it goes on, it says, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature. That doesn't include, in Texas, there's no areas that were purchased by the consent of the legislature. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating a constitutional right, for they are deemed to know the law. And so that's why I file a bar grievances. The bar members are required to know the law. And this is the preamble to the Constitution. We the people of the United States, those are state citizens. Before the Constitution and before the Articles of Confederation, there was just state citizens. That's all there was. And so we the people is state citizens, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. So then, if you can show that you are a direct descendant of the founders, then you are posterity, or even claim it. Let them prove you're not. It's impossible. Articles of Confederation is a compact between the states. The Constitution is a compact between the states. We the people of the free, sovereign, independent states. It's not we the U.S. citizens, it's we the state citizens. This is Article 1 of the Definitive Treaty of Peace of 1783. His Britannic Majesty acknowledges the said United States. In other words, New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, and it lists all the states. And so, United States there, and that's what I don't understand is why it's capitalized, because it really shouldn't be capitalized unless it's a title of some sort. And that's what I wonder, you know, about what Chong and these other guys are saying about it being, you know, another corporation. And it might be, but it's saying, in other words, and it's listing all the states. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's Article 9 and Amendment. At common law, we have unlimited rights. No state shall coin money or mint bills of credit or make anything but gold or silver coin a tender in the payment of debts. And so there's no lawful money in general circulation since 1965, and that actually can work to your advantage. The United States shall guarantee in every state of this union a republican form of government. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution, which shall with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress independent and outside of that instrument. And Downs versus Bidwell again. The style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. Article 1, Articles of Confederation, and yet a U.S. passport just says United States of America. A passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces authorizing him to travel unmolested within the district occupied by his troops. This is Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition, Passport Safe Conduct, Safeguards, Cartels, Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100. And there is a silver certificate, and it says, the United States of America in all block capital letters, which some people say is a separate entity than what's described in the Articles of Confederation, and very well could be. Here it is, though, in upper and lower case, on a land patent. It's an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. That's like about 4 days after Roosevelt took office. HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session June 5, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. U.S. Congressional Record, March 17, 1993. On that same day, according to U.S. Senate Report number 93-549, dated November 19, 1973, since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, member martial law is a law of emergency and necessity. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the President may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens. A majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule. For 40 years, freedoms and governmental guarantees guaranteed by the Constitution have in varying degrees been abridged by laws brought in force by states of national emergency. In other words, they perjured their oaths. Within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. Nothing can stand against the Church. And that's Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley, Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. Oh, and look at that. There's Congress, and there's those Roman fasci on the speaker's podium. Let's get in closer. This text is kind of hard to read. Let's go on the next page. It'll be going from the left around the bottom and to the right. So the first text over there, Roman Achaea military staff carried in battle by all Roman commands, planted on all conquered nations. That's this military staff right here. So then the next one is devout Roman Catholic, honorary degree at Jesuit Scranton University. Well, the liar, Biden, the thief, the guy that stole the election, or, you know, that he's so far he's stolen it, it ain't over till it's over. Roman bundle of rods bound to a weapon, symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man. That's this one right here, and pointing at these Roman fasci right here. Devout Roman Catholic, trained by Jesuits, installed the first Jesuit chaplain to the house. That's this text right here, and they're talking about Boehner, or Boner, or whatever his name is. Anyways, there's a better picture of it. There's the Roman fasci right there, and there's the military spear. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Yeah, he wants to make sure you're unarmed so he can murder you and torture you and do all sorts of stuff. He's a Jesuit, so he lies. Matter of fact, I've got a picture of him engaging in idolatry. He's kissing the feet of a statue. So, I mean, that's idolatry. I mean, he's Satanist for sure. But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government and interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive practical regulations plainly written down. The people of the United States have delegated to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. Color means an appearance. It's all color of law. An appearance, it's a fraud, it's a lie, as distinguished from that which is real, a prima facie apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality, or a disguise or a pretext. Colorable, that which is an appearance only and not in reality, what it purports to be, hence counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoers clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. But in fact, in law, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment. That's a summary from United States versus United Mine Workers, 1947. At common law, our rights are unlimited. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statutes required. These are fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. As a general rule, men have the natural right to do anything which their inclinations may suggest, and if it be not evil in itself, in no way impairs the rights of others. If you want to be one of we the people, you cannot go into international law. Once you go into international law in any matter, you cannot claim you're sovereign ever in that matter. If you do, these so-called judges will see it, see that you don't know what you're talking about. They may just railroad you and let you deal with it. They may say you're crazy. They will certainly ignore what you're saying. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their place, their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death, which is all these Barnum scum. Ye are the father of the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Bar members are liars, thieves, and murderers. Bar members know exactly what they're doing. Albert Pike in Morals and Dogma. Basically, if you read that book, this is taken from page 322. Talks about Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness Lucifer, the son of the morning, is it he who bears the light with all its splendors and intolerable blinds, feeble, sensual, or devilish souls? Doubt it not. And so Albert Pike was a Grand Master of the Freemasons. He was also a Confederate general, and he was a Satanist. He said that the Masons worship Satan. Anyways, so this is what I did in a case in Texas. I got this citation right here, and I submitted this. The Constitution of the United States of America, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. I'm not a United States citizen. I am a Texas national. I should have put I am. And I should have said it under penalty of perjury. But so far this case has gone away. I haven't heard a peep out of them. And I said, vacate this citation for lack of jurisdiction. This is what Charlie on my Google group suggested, and I thought I'd give it a try, and so far it's worked. I filed it that same day. As you can see, there's a filed stamp there, and there's a filed stamp there. So I took it down to the court, and I filed it, and I always take, you know, I took 3 copies, an original and 2 copies, and I gave one for the court, one for the prosecutor, and then I keep one, and haven't heard a peep. It's all executive branch under Article 1 of the Federal Constitution using bar members. The place where your rights are violated the most is in their so-called court. Use the one-page response using Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and file it into their so-called court and keep a copy for evidence. Then file a judicial complaint and bar grievances attaching your evidence. All of this is coming from the United Nations under international law. All of this is satanic. We need to prepare bug-out locations. We need to use virtual private networks. We need to use private mailboxes. I use Brave because Brave is not tracked for an internet browser. I use private internet access for a VPN. And the only information they have on me is an email address, and I pay with Litecoin. Okay, so I am not 100% where I want to be, but I'm certainly on my way, and it's one step at a time. Has anybody watched the movie Enemy of the State? Anybody remember that movie?
No.
Huh? You haven't? With Will Smith?
No.
Where they're watching him, the satellite? What happens is he gets a copy, he gets a hold, or accidentally, he doesn't even know he has it. But he has a videotape of a congressman being murdered. He doesn't know he has it. And the NSA is, an official in the NSA is the one who did the murder. And so the NSA is basically hunting this guy down. They're using satellites. I mean, all sorts of stuff. You ought to watch it. It's pretty good. Anyways, it's an old movie. You ought to watch it. It's called Enemy of the State. You ought to watch it. Because all of that technology at that time was 30 years old, okay? Who knows what they've got now, you know? So the point being is you need to, you know, it shows them, you know, getting the satellite and seeing the guy from space. They see him, one of the guys, he's talking to another guy on the top of a building in downtown DC or someplace. I think it's DC. And so it shows it from space, from a satellite, and they go and bug his clothes, and they do all sorts of stuff. And what happens is he runs into this guy that's ex-CIA guy that just kind of went off the grid, and so this ex-CIA guy is showing him what to do. And so, anyways, the point being is that. It's quite a surprise ending. I'm not going to tell you what the ending is, but it's well worth it. You need to watch that movie for sure, because that technology is old. The key is just not to be someone they're looking for, because if they are, they'll have you. If they really want you, they'll have you. I used to take, I don't know if you remember back when George Bush Sr. ran for president, there was also another guy running for president called Bo Gritz. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a Vietnam War veteran. He was the guy that the movie Uncommon Valor was made about, or those Rambo movies. Remember those Rambo movies? Well, he was the guy that used to run with he was a colonel, and with his troops, they would run into North Vietnam, pick up a pilot, and because the pilot, 40 miles, and because the pilot usually was injured or something, they'd carry him on their back and run 40 miles out of North Vietnam and be basically fighting every inch of the way. And that was his job. He did that all the time. You know what I mean? Anyways, he had this spike training that he was teaching people on how to be ready for specially prepared individuals for key events. That's what spike stand for. Anyways, there was one of the guys, I went to a couple of their spike training events. They had a bunch of them. And in one of the events, there was a guy there that said that he was in the room and they argued over who got the satellite. And so, again, they can see you from space. As long as there's no cloud cover. If it's a clear day, they can see you from space. If they want to. Anyways, and then alternative remedies. We need to be looking at alternative remedies. We don't want to be held ransom to these drug dealers that, they call doctors nowadays. Some of them are good, but not all of them. And I don't trust them, quite frankly. Anyways, that's the end of the presentation. I'd say we ought to go to lunch. I don't know what you guys want to do, but I think it's time to go to lunch.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And again, you said alternative remedies, stay away from the doctors. Would you have an insurance policy? Not an insurance policy, would you have health care?
I don't have health insurance, if that's what you're wondering.
Okay.
I do have health care. It's called my sister-in-law, and she's an herbalist.
Okay. I don't have it for 15 years. But someone made a comment to me the other day, my aunt, she said, oh, but if you get sick and you get cancer and you go to the hospital, they're going to take everything from you, to pay those bills.
If you don't own anything,
Well,
they won't.
I couldn't get into that with her because she won't understand, but could they do that if you didn't have all that on the
Well,
end?
it's actually true. There's a lot of older people. Like there's a friend of mine in Texas. His mother is she's in a nursing home. She's got a trach, and she's on a feeding tube, and has been for like a year or more. She's in pretty bad shape. He's been trying to, he doesn't authorize them to just like if she stops breathing, he wants her to resuscitate her, and because they would soon just if she stopped breathing then just let her die. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he won't authorize that. And because he figures there's always hope, and I agree with him. I mean, who can make that call, Anyways, so she's been in this nursing home for over a year. Matter of fact, she had the feeding tube for a long time, and he brought her home, and he's like in his 50s, and he takes care of her. He would go with her and stay with her in the hospital every day, all day. He'd sleep there. And actually, he would have me running errands for him when I was available. You know what I mean? When he was in the hospital because he couldn't leave. He buys and sells cell phones. He's got hundreds of cell phones, and so he would tell me to go and meet some guy, and he'd give me like $4,000 cash, and I'd go buy a bunch of cell phones, and or he'd give me a bunch of cell phones, and I'd take them to some guy, and the guy'd give me $4,000 cash, and then I'd take it back to him. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And anyways, she's in that situation. They do that. Fortunately, they were smart, okay? Because a long time ago, they went and transferred everything out of her name and put it in LLCs and stuff like that. Like the house that he's got, it used to be her house. It's now in an LLC, has been for years.
My mom did that already.
Sorry?
My mom did that with her mom already, just
Right.
in case.
Right. And so if you make preparations, and trusts are a perfect vehicle for that kind of stuff, because then she doesn't own it. Otherwise these doctors will do exactly that. They'll steal everything. Mm-hmm. And so for sure they will. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but that's true. Anyways, do we want to go for lunch?
Yes.
I'd say it's about time. It's it's 1:30.